Why would someone consider going from being the landlord guy to the notes guy? Stay tuned and find out. Well, we are back once again with Note School TV, where we are every single Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. So make sure that you're joining us every week. And if you're trying to figure out, man, why do I keep missing it? It's because the next step for you is you need to go to the YouTube channel, hit subscribe, and then immediately hit that little bell notification. That bell will send you a notification when we go live. Actually, we'll send you a notification probably about 30 minutes beforehand so that you know, oh, I got to change something so I can jump on, so I could chat with Eddie, so I could chat with the guest and ask some questions, share some input, and that kind of stuff. So it's a great place to be every Wednesday. I hope you're joining us every week. And if these videos are valuable to you, man, it would do a lot for the channel if you would like these videos. It also tells us a little bit more about, as we see these trends grow, we should put out more content like that, right? And so if you're brand new to Notes, maybe you're brand new to Note School, brand new to Note School TV, welcome. If you're wanting to learn a little bit more, you can go to noteschool.com/TV to really learn a little bit more about what we do and what the note business is all about, right? It's a great opportunity to check that out. And if this is your first time, you should also know at the end of the show, when we're done with the show, we actually stick around and we kind of have an informal after party, right? It's just a place to look at your comments, look at some of the stuff in the chat, and really just have an open dialogue, answer your questions, make you feel a little bit more a part of the team. And so, as always, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, just say hello. Just type in the comments right now. Say hello. Tell us where you're from, and we'd love to engage with you a little bit. This week, we've got a very special guest. Jim Griffin is here, and you're going to get to meet him in just a minute. But before we do that, as always, we really need to figure out what's happening in the market. And so we're going to bring on a very special guest to talk about the news. Well, here's our special guest, Mr. Eddie Speed himself.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm always good. I'm always good. So I know you've got the knowledge. We'd love to hear a little bit about what's the latest in the news world that we need to know today.
Well, we'll pull up the data chart here, and man, we have half of the homes that sold for above list. Half of the homes listed. So there's about 1 million houses listed right now, Brian. Half of them sold at over list. And if you look at this, it's pretty interesting. This represents 2019. And as you can see, that peaked out, somewhere in here, right? And then if we change it up, and this was, whoops, I didn't pick the right color there at all, did that was not the right thing to do, was it? So if you look at this year in the yellow, and that peaked out right in here, kind of at the top of the market, and look at 2021, and we are headed straight for the sky. As of last week, 50.7% of houses sold above list, Brian.
Wow.
That's called a shortage in the market.
That's right.
Shortage of listings, no doubt. Now, is everything good? Is everything good? No, how about the mortgage business? What do you think?
Well, Eddie, the numbers are going up. Everything's got to be good, right?
Well, low inventory drives down mortgage applications.
How about that?
And another thing is refis have cooled off. Say it ain't so.
Makes sense.
So refinances dropped 7. And that is a direct result of pretty much the pretty people all refied last year, Brian. That's the truth. The perfect people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The perfect people.
Sure. The lowest risk to the bank.
And then about 4% lower on the purchase activity. So all of that is driving down the mortgage business. Now, we're not happy that that's true for our friends in the mortgage origination world. We're just saying it's a fact. By the way, we predicted this fact and quoted mortgage bankers on the same thing back earlier in the year, Brian. So we're just saying that sometimes we get lucky and we're right. Right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know, I wonder, Brian, if that 30% of the people that could get a mortgage before the virus and can't get one now, I wonder if that's a factor.
Well, we can always, I don't know if you want to pull up the mortgage credit availability index, but
no, I mean, we do it a lot and we pull it
Yeah.
up, but about 30% of the people that could get a mortgage before the virus can't now. And so when we say that mortgage financing is down, isn't it logical that if 30% of the people now can't get a mortgage, that would drive down the production of people that are getting a mortgage?
Yeah, and the refinance is a good example of that too. If you can't qualify for a loan, you may not be able to qualify for a refinance to pull all that equity that you've built up. You probably can't pull that out of your house.
Yeah. All right. We will keep watching it.
I love it.
We have a super duper guest today. Super duper. This guy is a guy that I've really learned to appreciate. I think he's a very smart guy. I tell people all the time that Note School gets to really train some smart people, but this guy certainly fits in that category, and at a high level, and just a fun guy. And I've really gotten to know him well. And you know, he's really a kind of a rookie at Note School. He's not been with us for years and years, but he has certainly gone and taken it and executed it well. And so, Brian, I want to introduce Mr. Jim Griffin.
And hello, Eddie.
How are you?
Very good. Nice to be on with you.
Yes, sir. Nice to have you. And I'm so glad that we got to hang out a little bit today. And you have quite an interesting story. And I hope I do a good job of extracting it. Because you really have a great story. Little bit of just an interesting story, because we have a lot of well-read people that hang out with us at Note School, and so your dad is a pretty famous author.
That is true.
He wrote a very interesting book, and it really is about the Federal Reserve and some things that people don't know about the Federal Reserve. Is that right?
That's right. The creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin. Yes.
So you have been influenced all of your life by people studying the market and studying things that happen and things that are likely to happen in the future, right?
Yeah. Imagine that dinner conversation at 6 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, you know.
Well, tell your dad hello. We have a lot of fans of your dad in the Note School area, and so just glad that he could impart some knowledge on you, and you can later share it with us. So we get to enjoy that. So you're from Tucson, Jim.
Yes.
You've been in Tucson a long time?
No, it's not by random chance that I'm in Tucson. I picked Tucson because I love it, but also because the market dynamics in Tucson are quite interesting. A lot of people don't know that about 85% of Tucson is opportunity zones.
Really? Very interesting.
It's pretty hard not to be in an opportunity zone in Tucson.
That's interesting. So you picked Tucson kind of for that target market situation, but that's in traditional real estate.
Yes.
So you moved there for kind of traditional real estate, yet you have an interesting twist to that and where you've gone. So tell us a little bit of the story and where you've been and how you got here.
Well, you know, like everybody, I started, with traditional real estate, and that was defined in my mind as being fix and flips and or fix up a house and rent it. And I actually did that initially in Dallas, where I was living at the time in 2007. And I managed to make pretty much every mistake that every new investor makes, especially mistakes about estimating incorrectly what it would cost me to do something, estimating incorrectly how much money I would make, my spreadsheets looked great, but it almost never, no, not almost never, it never turned out the way the spreadsheet said it would turn out. And you could put in a beautiful white carpet. I learned not to put in white carpet, by the way. Beautiful white carpet. Discovered that somebody decided that that was a great platform for taking their car engine apart and putting it back together again, etc. Put in a great new kitchen, and all the drawers are broken by the time you get the house back. How can you break a kitchen drawer? But you do, etc., etc. The dogs, the water heater that breaks, and everything, all the calls, literally the calls about toilets. They talk about toilets and termites. Really, you do get calls about toilets. It's true. And so, it just became, I realized that I wasn't going to be a landlord. It was more work than I had signed up for. It didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, and I felt that there must be some other thing. And surely that other thing must be not, managing or even delegating to somebody else to manage a property, especially not on the scale that I was doing it, right? So that alternative for me turned out to be notes.
So fairly typical. Note School has a lot of former landlords. I'll you know what I like to call them, right, Jim? I call them burnout landlords.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a common pattern. You've been to Note School events and seen kind of our audience, and that certainly is a pattern that we have those kind of guys. And so you came through a lineage that had a long history with Note School and a real estate investor group out in Arizona. And they introduced Brian because he was a speaker, and they said, this guy's going to talk about not doing real estate, but something secured by real estate, and boom, you got started. So what was that journey a little bit? And I think it's interesting for the audience, like what was fears that you may have had when you started and now you can almost even laugh at?
Yeah. So first of all, that journey, I'm one of those kinds of people, Eddie. I don't know if I even mentioned this to you, but I know other people that are like me. And I'll bet some people listening today are going to say, I'm like Jim in that regard. I'm pretty much a sucker. I'll sign up for every training there is. Whatever it is, if it's about buying land, I'll sign up for it. If it's about flipping, I'll sign up for it. If it's about residential assisted living, I'll sign up for it. Everything, I sign up for it all. And I take them all. And I can tell you straight up from day one, my experience at Note School was at completely a different level. I said to myself, oh my goodness, these guys are they're talking about stuff that's really at a higher level. It's not just, rah, go do this, I mean, I think there's some level of that in every, but my goodness, it's the real deal, and it's leaning in and it's solving, real problems in creative ways and smart people, and so that got me really pulled in a big way. I mean, imagine, being pulled into such an extent that you're attending like 3 sessions a week, with one program, and making sure that your calendar is free, because if you miss a session, you could miss something really important. So that was really, but the other part of your question, Eddie, was about fears. And for me, the fear or the obstacle was that I didn't really have people in my network, including people that were very experienced. I mean, thousands of deals that I work with, who had any idea how to have a problem on financing, or how to structure a note, or how to make a note structure better, and so on, all those kinds of things. And so what I've learned is that if you play too long as a lone ranger and you're trying to figure everything out yourself, and or if you've got like a close-knit team of people that are always the same people, and practically speaking, they're just saying yes to whatever you say, you can get pretty soft around the middle pretty fast. And so you really do need to have people that are challenging your ideas and so forth and so on. And that is what I found with Note School, and that accelerated me a lot.
Yeah, we call it an ecosystem. And I think that's what it is. I mean, and as you said, and thank you for your compliments about Note School. We are, long veterans in the business, teaching a business that we have done. Literally, our executive team has done it more than anybody else in our industry, which is highly unique that we're the company that also provides training. A lot of time training is provided by people with, let's be fair about it, fairly limited experience, right? So I thank you for that, but more importantly, it is the Bible says as iron sharpens iron, right? It's that, and so I think that's the thing. I have a passion. I was in a conversation with a data source this morning, Jim, and this person, they knew me from the past, and they call me and they says, Eddie, your name keeps coming up that you are like bringing to a laser point voids in the market. And we're a data source. And if we could pull data to this market condition, then you could show our clients how to go work and market to those market conditions. And I said, of course I can. I said, that's what I do. I show people voids in the market and creative finance strategies that could fix voids in the market. And you know what those two things are, Jim. If somebody's selling a house right now, I wouldn't be fooling with a homeowner. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't think I can compete with the realtors. Redfin already says that. Landlords, Jim, are bleeding, and they're not going to, they're at the rate they should, they're not going to the realtors to solve their problems. We can get into the psychology of why they're not, but statistically they're not, correct?
Correct, yes.
The other thing is we have June 30th is a sunset date for this moratorium. And we listen, Jim, we have millions of mortgages that are either been forbearance or in default. And now these people are now going to be facing a foreclosure situation.
Yes.
In fact, state of the industry last week, I gave the top states for both rent moratorium and foreclosure moratorium. So those are people that, once again, to me, I would be calling a realtor because they can sell anything right now. If I were in trouble with my mortgage, I would bail out and sell at the top of the market and get my loan paid off. But is that what people are doing? Not at a very high rate. I mean, we're talking way less than 50%. We are thinking about 25 to 35% of the people are calling a realtor and working at solving a problem. Maybe it's not on the market yet, but they're working at it. What we're being told is, though, that 70%-ish aren't. And that sounds to me like an opportunity for a real estate investor. That's what you're talking about, right? It's not just working loans on a whiteboard, and we're pretty good at that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's got to be more than that. You got to go figure out the void in the market and strategically how to solve a problem.
Yes.
Now, you've moved into notes. You've become very successful at working with passive investors. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, again, this is so much an enriching experience where I have the ability to sound off ideas with other people that are part of Note School, and and I'm talking about people who are very experienced. I mean, like selling 200 homes a year. These are the kinds of people that we're talking about. So what ends up happening is that, from the name Note School, people might think, oh, that's probably some kind of like a training program where you can consume some content and then you can get up to a certain level of understanding about notes. And it is that. But very quickly, if you lean in and study, it morphs into your mind group. And that, so this ability to work with other people, and yes, Eddie, I mean, in the summer summit, I shared some ideas or things that I was able to do were slight, you know, twists or turns on what some other people are doing, and in turn, those other people are sharing ideas with me, so it all comes together. But yeah, I mean, I think in about a 2 or 3 week period, because of a variety of about 350 people reach out to me and say, "I really want to work with you, Jim, and I could see what you're doing." And so, and last Monday I was at a barbecue, a Memorial Day barbecue with a couple of investors who found from Denver, and these guys raised $80 million last month, and they wanted to talk to me. It's like the reason that they wanted to talk to me was a variety of things, but one of them was, and by the way, you can imagine I wanted to talk to them too. I mean, somebody that can raise $80 million a month and is deploying money at that scale knows a lot about a lot of things that I could learn from. So yeah. I am kind of stunned that somebody wants to talk to me, but it has to do with the way I have some of the deals that I've done. Wow, I didn't realize that you could do that. How did you do that? Can you set up an hour-and-a-half call with me? Let's talk. And so, that whole process is very virtuous. You do a little thing, you do a simulation, you check with other people that know what they're doing. They beat it up a little bit, and other people get interested in what you're doing. It grows a little bit. You innovate a little bit. People beat it up again, grows a little bit. It's like that.
Yeah, I think, Jim, if I look at what I say is your genius, and you're a rookie at Note School, meaning you've been with us less than a year, but you do some very smart things that the most seasoned people in Note School have learned to do well, and that is you've got your messaging right. You understand what people with passive money want, and you do a great job of articulating that and taking them to strategies that you could help them with. That's the magic.
Yeah, and it's also about the mindset. I think everybody can recognize this. At the end, I had a call yesterday with a potential investor. It was scheduled to be 45 minutes. It was husband and wife, out of the country, actually, Canada, and ended up spending an hour and a half together. And at the end of the call, they said, "So Jim, this is really great. We learned a lot. Can you tell me, just so that I know what kind of box to put you in, what you're looking for, what kind of thing you want to sell me, so I can keep track of that?" And I said, and I had never been asked that question quite that way before, but the answer to me was obvious. I said, the question is, what do you need? What do you need? Do you need a short-term note? Do you need a longer-term note? What are your risk tolerance? I need to conform myself to what you need, and that's really the key to everything. If we're all just paying attention to what somebody needs and then delivering what they really need, then of course everything is going to go well.
That's a nugget right there. That's a nugget. Instead of trying to go be the sales guy and say, "I can do blah, blah, blah for you," you turned it around on them with complete sincerity, but you turned it around and said, "No, what can I help you with?" And I will guarantee you they will remember that part of the conversation long days in the future. That is a great idea. All right, so we've got a lot of different things that I want to talk about, and we're going to have a little after party, so we'll have a little thing after the thing. But I wanted to kind of just take the show part, the segment part within the show, and just kind of end this with, like, why do you do this? What's your real passion? What does this mean to you? What you're describing freedom to me, and I want to know what freedom gets for you. Yeah,
it's interesting, because Eddie, as you know, I came, and as you referenced, I came to notes and note school after I had things pretty well sorted for myself. So, you know, notes and note school is not an end to get to something else. There's not like a Margaritaville at the end of that journey. You know, I'm doing this because it's something that is itself something that I care a lot about. And, you know, that people talk about passion, but I like to use the word heart. You know, to me, I think the word heart points in a better direction sometimes than the word passion. So, you know, when I look at, you know, and I do traditional investing as well, and I look at somebody in the trades that applies an old world stucco technique, you know, and they're doing it with care and love, or somebody that's a painter and they know how to mix paint and gesso and create something that's very beautiful and unique, or somebody that does woodworking and does it, you know, in a very nice way, or a gardener who studies about the needs of each of their plants so that they can really deliver to that garden and to each of those plants what they really need, then that's heart. And the same thing should apply in the world of investment. So if we are leaning forward and thinking about what people really need, and taking care that every time we receive an email or every time we have a conversation, we're focusing on how do we do that in the best possible way, then that's heart. And if people feel that, then that's the whole reward right there for me. Just delivering that result.
So you're positioning yourself, obviously building a legacy, but you're positioning yourself to help people. You're applying that art, like you described the painter or the woodworker. You're applying the art of creative financing, not only helping yourself, but helping people that are passive investors in what accomplishing their goal. And that's a great analogy. I hadn't quite thought of it the way you described it so beautifully. And that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
All right. So are you going to be able to hang around with us a little bit? We'll have an after party to hang out, and we have to make sure that we keep this show rolling. Mr. Brian and Feeding Frenzy Friday.
Well, you guessed it, and we are going to talk about our sponsor. It is Notes Direct and the Feeding Frenzy Friday. That's who sponsors Note School TV each and every week. And really what those two things have in common is Notes Direct is a place where you can simply buy a note like you would buy something on Amazon or any other website. You can really, with the click of a button, be able to purchase a note. But what you really need to do is watch the playlist on the Note School TV. On the Note School YouTube channel. There's a playlist called Feeding Frenzy Friday where each week we break down a note from Notes Direct to help you better understand really what that looks like, what kind of information you need to consider, and really try to help you master your level of due diligence so you can feel confident clicking that buy button, move forward, close that, start to build your wealth. And so it's a great opportunity to learn a little bit more, as well as obviously take action. And another great thing to do, I think, while we've got the show going on, is we'd love for you to comment. You know, if this is something that you really relate to Jim's story, we'd love to hear about that. Tell us about really what was your, your why, or what does your shift look like from doing that one strategy to why you're considering notes. We'd love to hear a little bit from you. So drop a comment right now in the comment box there, regardless of whatever platform you're on. And if this is a valuable video for you, you think, hey, this is something that my wife needs to hear, my family needs to hear, there's a link below where you can share this. Simply grab that share link. You can text it to people. You can email it to people. It makes it really, really great to be able to share this content and get it out there. When you've got somebody who's been doing this for 40 years, you've done 50,000 deals, and he's sharing this information, man, I think it's really, really great to kind of, hey, be a go-giver, right? Take this information, share it, try to help others while you're growing as well. And so next week, we're going to continue to do our Note School TV. As always, we'll be here on Wednesdays at 11:05. But before we go to the after party, for those of you who can stick around and hang out with us, that's awesome. But before we do that, I just want to quickly remind some of you who dropped some comments in the chat. If you're trying to figure out what that next step is, right? How do I learn a little bit more about this? You can go to noteschool.com/TV to learn a little bit more about the note business, about Note School, kind of what that looks like for you. As always, we'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. It's great to get this support. And again, we'll continue to put out content as much as you guys need. Hit that bell notification though for this live show specifically. And you remember why, right? It's because you'll get an alert saying, hey, we're going live. That way you can jump on your phone, jump on your iPad, jump on your computer, whatever that looks like for you. And if you're somebody who's like, but Brian, I need help right now. I have this huge problem in my business. I need assistance immediately. Simply go to noteschool.com. There is a contact us tab. You can click that, put in your information, and someone from the team will reach right out to you and we'll see how we can help, whatever that looks like for you, right? And so for those of you who can stick around for the after party, I'm looking forward to seeing you there. For those of you who can't, hey, we'll catch you next Wednesday. I hope you have a great week. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you soon. All right. Well, Mr. Jim, thanks so much for joining us today. It's always good to have someone who has walked the path, right? Someone who's not in that spot of, oh, okay, I've discovered this might be a good idea for you, for me, right? But you're past that point. You're now you're even past the point of I'm going to start taking action, and you're past the point of, man, this is a really great, asset class basically to focus on to meet a lot of my goals. I think that's really encouraging for people to hear someone who has walked the journey, and not even in a long period of time. It's, people hear Eddie, it's nothing against Eddie, but when you've been doing it for 40 years, it's like, of course you're successful, but to hear someone go from, I'm a normal investor. I've just simply switched from, this rental business over to this note business. It's not like you run a $1 billion hedge fund or something. You're just an average guy, right? So that's true. It's always good. It's always good. Well, we had people from all over the country kind of chiming in, and one of the things that I wanted to ask about really your story is, was there a moment for you when it talks about, when you were looking at obviously the financial side of it, was there a moment where risk was a variable, where you said, hey, I think I can start to reduce a lot of my risk? Was that important to you from a long-term perspective?
So yeah, risk, there's, when we talk about risk, and I'm also an analytics guy, right? So one way of understanding what is risk when we look at it on a spreadsheet or we look at it on a graph is volatility. That is a kind of like an index of risk. When you see that graph going a lot like this, that's volatility. That's also risk. So one of the things that happens with, say, for example, rental investments is from year to year, you have that volatility. It's like you had to replace that aircon. You had to do this, you had to put the new roof on and so forth and so on. This thing happened. And so your vacancy rate was up and so forth. So when you talk about reducing risk, one of the ways that you can understand that you've reduced risk is if you reduce the volatility in your returns into a range. And that's what notes do, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, Jim, it's refreshing because you are essentially repeating back what you've heard me say, and that is people get drunk on yield. And you made reference to the spreadsheet earlier, talking about rehabs and rentals. And you've got this beautiful spreadsheet. And my guess is, knowing you've got this very beautiful spreadsheet you started out with that ran all these models. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, this wasn't in the model, right? In other words, the spreadsheet says this, but your checking account says something else. And that's the thing that I think the reality with notes is, people are like, oh, my rentals are great and they're going to do this for me or that for me. But the truth of the matter is, rentals are highly management intensive, correct? And in mismanagement or just missing expense that's naturally going to happen makes that volatility of your yield exactly what becomes the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think when we're talking about volatility, for those of you who maybe that's not a super common word in your vocabulary, I think a really common indicator for even the newest of person is the market's going like this, right? If you have assets right now that you don't sell and the market drops 20%, your net worth just dropped 20%. That is a picture of volatility. And if you've been following us a long time, you've heard Eddie use this scenario all the time about by being able to take what's available to you now. We've talked about seller financing on this TV show as well, where if you sell it now with seller financing and become the note holder, if the asset drops 20%, that volatility falls onto whoever bought the house, not your net worth, not your cash flow. And so it really becomes this conversation of really protecting what you've gained. And listen, if you've been investing in basically anything in the last 10 years, you're probably really proud of yourself. You've done very well. It was very difficult to lose a lot in the last 10 years, but things don't go like this forever, right? And I think we all know that. And so how do we start to mitigate our risk? How do we start to address some of these volatility issues and really lower our risk, but keep our returns? This is something I think landlords really cringe at, because they're like, but if I leave the landlord space, I'm making all these returns, because they're just looking at the paper. They're not looking at the fact that all this money went into a property that had the same cash flow driving down the return on investment. They're not looking at the market rolling over. And so this is all just really good stuff to kind of soak in and kind of look at from the standpoint of this might be something to really consider, because the market conditions are really primed for notes to be a big conversation. And obviously, as you've seen in the last year, Note School growing and the success of these students, I think it just does a lot for us to hear this. And so it's really, really good. Eddie, you got anything else before we wrap up?
Jim, they say the longer you're in the business, the more likely you are to attract to notes. You started this in 2001, correct?
2007.
2007.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's about 14 years now.
Mm-hmm. 14
years, and you're a little more gray-haired than you were 14 years ago. And it's funny, as the grayer our hair gets, Brian, the more likely we are to attract the notes. And I started in as a young guy, 20 years old, and Brian, you started as a young guy.
Yeah.
And I think, Jim, you would say that if you make that transition quicker, you're going to like yourself better.
Well, yeah, it's funny. We have this funny human side that causes us to do things that the intelligent side of us would tell us not to do. And I confess, I still do. I still invest money on things that look like they would be fun. The intelligent side of me says, Jim, why are you doing that? You already know it may be fun. A lot of things might be fun. Skydiving is fun to some people.
Yeah. Well, and I think to speak to those who are watching this right now, who maybe you relate more to my age bracket, right? And I will say this, that the best advice you could possibly get is to listen to advice from somebody who's been there. And so it doesn't matter what your age is. You could be 20 years old. I mean, when Eddie Speed starts this thing at 20 years old, it's telling you that age isn't a factor. It's literally about taking in the information, being open-minded to say, maybe these guys know something, and then see where this fits in your business. The beautiful part about notes, in my opinion, is how flexible and malleable it can be. It can really fit into so many different aspects of your business. And once you get a taste, as you see, you kind of just say, hey, this might be a thing I want to really focus on. Yeah. So, man, well, Jim, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Mr. Speed, always a pleasure to have you on. We'll catch everybody next Wednesday at 11:05. And again, if you're needing some more information, go to noteschool.com/TV. And if you're somebody who says, hey, this is great, take this video, go share it with a friend, share it with a fellow investor. It might really help change the direction of their business. A lot of people are struggling. It's time to stop struggling and start thriving. There's an opportunity right in front of you. So share these videos, go out, take action, and we'll catch you guys on the other side.